This is Season 4 of Flute Unscripted. Hi, I'm your host, Caity Massoud, and I sit down with a new artist every week and share their stories with you. This podcast is brought to you by Flute Center of New York, the marketplace for flutes. Join us, subscribe, rate, and review us. Use this podcast promo code LISTEN for some special deals. Get $50 off any flute or accessory purchase of $4.99 or more, and 10% off any sheet music order, including free shipping on all orders over $50. Judith Mendenhall is the Principal Flutist of the American Ballet Theater Orchestra and is on faculty at Mannes and the Aaron Copland School of Music at Queens College. In 2016, she received the Distinguished Teaching Award from the New School, where she is chair of the wind department. Her many accomplishments include performing as a recitalist, chamber musician, and orchestral musician in the United States and abroad. She has appeared on the Musicians from Marlborough tour and been the principal flutist of the New York Chamber Symphony, Mostly Mozart Festival, Grand Teton Festival, and Colorado Music Festival. Anyone that has met or worked with Judith, and the list of people that call her a mentor is long, can tell you that she is the most warm, kind, and generous person. She certainly lived up to those expectations when I recently sat down with her to learn more about her life and career. Well, thanks, Judy, for coming in today. It's really an honor to have you.
My pleasure.
You are the quintessential New York flutist. I feel like when people hear your name, they think ABT, New York City. Everyone that I know that's a New York City flutist has studied with you and kind of references you as a big mentor. Do you see yourself that way? And how did you come to be? You've come a long way. I think you're from Minnesota.
Right.
How did you come to New York, and how did you find yourself in the position that you have?
Oh, it's I do feel like I do occupy these shoes that I wear now, but it does take decades, I think, to really feel your gravitas and your command. Mm-hmm. So, and I went to school in Boston at NEC. Then I went to Paris for a year on a Fulbright to study with Michel Debost. Came back, was sort of at Curtis, not officially at Curtis, but in a quintet that I was with. And we worked with Marcel Moïse. Wow. Once a month he came down and coached us. And then we all moved to New York City. This is decades ago. And so I've just been in New York ever since. Mm-hmm. And carved out my career here. And it's never a straight path, really. This is one thing that we all learn as we go through our 20s and 30s and 40s, but it's been an amazing path, and I'm very happy with what I do.
And how'd you get your job at ABT?
So this was like about 23 years ago, I think. The flutist retired, and they were trying people out. So then they tried me out for a season. It was that kind of, what's it called? That kind of audition.
A trial?
A trial by fire,
oh,
I think. Yeah. So I had to play a whole season with them. 8 or 10 new ballets, music totally new to me. The Sleeping Beauty,
I was going to say, were you kind of proficient in the ballet rap, or was this all new to you?
Yeah. Totally new. Don Quixote and Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake, Romeo and Juliet, and Prokofiev, Cinderella, and stuff coming at me so fast I couldn't believe it. So, and then they needed they required another season or partial season to give someone tenure. So I did the next season as well, half the season, and then they gave me the job.
Wow.
So it wasn't by an audition. It was that kind of sitting in the chair day after day.
Right.
I remember I would see, and I was so concerned with learning all this music coming at me, and I would see people coming during intermissions with like frozen fruit things and ice creams and food, and I had no idea where they got these things. I never even went to the cafeteria in my first year because all I did was sit in my chair and learn music for the next act coming up.
Oh my gosh, was it stressful? I mean, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, exciting, but really stressful.
Yeah. How'd you manage that stress?
And I had a little girl at the time too. Wow. She was 3 years old at the time, and I remember going to go play Sleeping Beauty, the opening of Sleeping Beauty, which is probably the hardest symphonic repertoire I've ever seen in my life. I mean, after the prologue for Sleeping Beauty, you need a massage and a nap and a meal. and I remember saying to my little girl that I was scared to go play Sleeping Beauty. Oh. And she said, Mama, scared of Sleeping Beauty. Scared of music, Mama? She couldn't understand that because you would be scared of witches or something like that.
Does that kind of put it in perspective for you? Like
it
looking
does,
through
but
a child's
one still,
eyes.
yes, but one still does have this fear.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I can totally understand. Well, that's really impressive. You were doing all of this and kind of carving out your career in New York with a little child. That's also really tough to manage it all. Did you have a hard time juggling everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of comforting, right? That's reality, is that it's hard.
Yeah. Actually, I have my favorite story about this for any mothers listening out there.
Myself included.
Yourself, how old is your child?
She's almost 2.
You're kind of ready for this story, actually.
Okay, perfect.
This story comes to me through my teacher, Paula Robeson.
Oh, great.
Paula was talking, when Paula's little girl was 2 or 3, Paula was talking with Blanche Moïse. So this is Marcel Moïse's daughter-in-law, who was by then a very old and wise woman. And Paula was saying to Blanche Moïse, I just don't know how to manage my career and motherhood. I just feel mediocre about everything. And Blanche Moïse said to her in her very thick French accent, well, how much % mother are you? Oh, I don't know, Blanche, maybe 75%. Well, how much % musician are you? Maybe 75%. Well, 75% and 75%, that make 150%. That is not bad. And that, I think, is real wisdom for any woman that's trying to balance the two. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's very challenging, and you end up getting something so much larger than what you ever thought you would get.
And your life is so full in many different ways. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What have some of the big rewards and the big demands been of your job?
The ABT job? Mm-hmm. One thing I really learned how to do there, which is so important, is codify. Everyone practices, like we all understand what it is to get something to concert shape, right? And we have recitals. But when you have 8 Romeos a week or 8 Swan Lakes and you've got to knock it out of the park 8 times a week, you learn quickly to codify and be able to reproduce the basic version of the way you want it to be 8 times in a row.
And what are some tips you have for doing that? So like a dummy's guide for... Yeah.
I think the most profound level of practicing, we all have the things we do, the strategies rhythms and slow with metronome, all those kind of things. But the most profound level, once you've done a lot of those, the strategic work, is to stand there and play the solo, the passage, the way you want it to be, and notice every single thing you're doing and burn it into your nervous system. Like you burn a CD, like you burn a DVD, so that you have an exact neurology. Your neurology knows exactly what your mouth is doing, what your fingers are doing, what your ear is listening for. It's that kind of work.
Is there also work outside of playing flute that you think contributes to being really consistent, like your overall health and taking care of yourself, maybe taking care of your body, exercise, what you're eating, all of that stuff? Do you think that is a contributing factor?
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I believe powerfully in all that. I do yoga religiously and run. I run a few times a week and eat well and sleep well.
Yeah, it's a huge part. Yeah. I think it's something people forget is we're kind of athletes in a way. So that is a factor, something you can't ignore or turn off. Those things do affect you and affect your performance. So I always think it's interesting how some people are really tuned into that and others are not. So I also think it's probably really, for me, it's very captivating and you really get to use your imagination when you're watching dancers on stage and getting to see the music kind of come alive. Do you draw inspiration from the dancers in that way, knowing that your music has a visual representation to your audience?
Here's the ironic part of this. We never see the dancers.
Well, yeah. I guess I'm saying, can you imagine?
I guess we can imagine it. Yeah. We never see dancers ever. During breaks, we can walk down the hall and watch them warming up, and I love watching that. No, it's really... I would say it's just the intense teamwork of us down in that pit. I'm sure the Met Opera people feel the same thing.
Yeah.
When you're not on a stage and you don't see the audience, there's something about the work that intensifies, the teamwork of your colleagues that intensifies because you're not aware of playing for anyone.
Right. Do you feel like you're kind of playing for each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
The team, yeah.
Right. Since you have come so far, and you said you noticed a difference kind of in every decade, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. What are those differences, and do you think there are like different phases to your career?
I think there's so much testing and questioning in your 20s and 30s. I don't know how young people are today in their 30s and 40s. I see the ones that are in their 20s, and I see there's so much. There's a lot of daring, but there's a lot of questioning also.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you learn to trust yourself more, and you learn confidence just because you must to stay in the game.
Right. Do you ever feel like does that feeling ever go away of always trying to keep up and push the envelope? Do you ever feel like you've kind of made it?
No.
Yeah.
It never goes away. Actually, I remember when I finally got the ABT job, I thought to myself, well, they can't just want me. They must want a more perfect version of me. So I went into overdrive upon getting the job and worked even harder because it's that drive to be better. And that's something to really watch out for.
Do you think people take it a little too far? Did you take it a little too far?
I always do. I still do.
Yeah.
We all do. And so I have to keep watchful of that. I have to make sure that I do things like, nowadays I go to Greece in the summer for
good for you.
A few weeks just to restore.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that for a long time. And now I'm getting to see how essential it is.
Do you have a hard time kind of disconnecting once you're finally there and letting go? Easy for you?
No.
Yeah, good. Good for you. Judith also travels to teach at numerous festivals over the summer. When she's not maintaining her studio here in New York, she has regularly coached musicians in master classes in Taiwan, at the Imani Winds Chamber Institute, and has been on faculty at the ARIA International Summer Academy and Interlochen Flute Institute. Teaching is central to Judith's career, and she takes shaping future generations of well-rounded musicians very seriously. Teaching is also another huge part of your life, and I know you're really passionate about it, and it's central to what you do. You've coached a number of groups, Imani Winds Chamber Music Festival, a Bach to Bebop summer workshop in Vermont. We've gone to Interlochen, ARIA. I've been to ARIA. I think I might have even been when you were there one year. What do you find exciting about helping young people and helping them kind of hone their craft?
So you mean the festival work?
Yeah.
As opposed to Manus during the year?
Yeah.
You mean? Yeah. And many of these people that I meet at ARIA, for example, or Interlochen, they end up coming to Manus. So this is how they end up becoming
kind of form
my
your
students.
Relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, I love summer festival work because I think that creative juices get really flowing in the summer. It's like the sap in the maple trees flows in March. And I think summertime is a real ripe time for us musicians to grow. Mm-hmm. And if you're at ARIA, for example, in a 10-day bubble, it's somehow you grow more in 10 days than you would just 10 days at your home because it's in that hermetically sealed bubble.
And you're with like-minded people and you're all kind of confined to one area together, right? And so a lot of these students that you're forming these relationships with, now maybe we do talk about your Manus and your Copland School of Music students as well. What do you look for when you're recruiting someone and you know that you want them to be in your studio?
So I always superimpose what I call the practice pyramid onto myself and everyone that I ever work with. If you can visualize a triangle, a pyramid, and the bottom level of it, if any of my students are ever listening to this, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The bottom layer of this triangle, of this pyramid, is skills, rhythm, tone, intonation, technique, all those things. The basis of our craft, solid skills. And then the middle layer is musical intelligence. This is the layer where most young people fall short, I think. There's a lot of good flutists out there, but many don't probe enough in a musically intelligent way.
Sure.
Who's the composer? What's the style? What's the marking on the page? What's the tempo? What's the character? Where are the sequences? Where are the phrases, phrase lengths? What are the harmonies? These are things you can see with your eyes and hear with your ears. And so I always tell them, if you have two eyes, you can do this. And then the very top of this pyramid, of this triangle, is imagination, inspiration, ideas. And that's the magic part that we all want.
Yeah.
Just get the first two layers good. Just get those really good skills and musical intelligence, and then that tip will flow in more naturally to your playing. So what I look for, I'm explaining this because what I look for when I hear auditions, for example, I'm looking for that person. If I can check off all three layers, that's fantastic. If I can check off those bottom two layers, that's really good. Doesn't have to be the top one, because you can tell when someone can get the top layer, that inspired imagination one. If they only have that top layer, that top tip, but they don't have the skills, that won't work either, right? So I'm looking for someone that can satisfy at least the bottom two layers, if not three.
Okay. So that's a good tip for anyone out there that's wanting to study with you. And your students also, I think you have a reputation for really mentoring your students beyond their years just with you as well. You're really guiding, and you really care about them as people. Do you think that that's important to kind of foster that relationship with your students and kind of see them through their full career?
Well, I think I've been lucky enough now to have several of these people in my life, who, and some of whom you know quite well. I feel incredibly lucky to have these young people, these huge talents that they're done with Manus now, but I am very close with them. And I do advise them, but I also just love hearing about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I love hanging out with them. They're just great people.
That's great. That's good that you can have students that are, you feel proud of the work they're doing, but also just proud of who they are as people.
Well, yes, and I really consider them my colleagues.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know that you're very holistic with your approach to playing, and in addition to taking care of yourself physically in regards to playing, so hand health, like not overworking. Yeah. Do you also take into account mental health? Like, not, you mentioned overworking yourself a little bit, but also maybe negative self-talk.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, we got to watch that, but also focus and knowing what you want and making decisions, official decisions about things, and being curious.
Do you think that you've noticed any changes with generations of flutists that have come to you? Is focus a huge problem? I know there's more access on social media. You get very distracted with different Instagram accounts, or with being always on your phone all the time. Do you find that it's harder for people to focus in the moment at the tasks that are in front of them, or you haven't really noticed?
No, I think I feel like people are getting increasingly more dedicated, and the talent that comes is just kind of astounding to me.
I guess maybe a better question would be, what changes have you noticed over the years within students?
I think there was a flake period back in the, say the early 90s maybe. Like, people wouldn't show up to chamber music because they had to do their laundry or something like that.
That's weird.
I saw a whole flake part of a generation way back then. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. This would have been say mid 90s or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's gotten better.
Oh, yeah. Not like that anymore.
That's good.
There's too much pressure. Everyone feels the pressure on them.
Yeah. One other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, since you've recorded with a lot of different labels and a lot of different circumstances as a soloist and a chamber musician, have you noticed different kind of pressure that you might put on yourself in those situations when you're recording? Do you feel a little bit more at ease in a chamber situation than a solo situation when you're recording? Recording
is hard for anyone that's done it. I'm sure you've noticed this too, because when you've done something really well now, and you have to yet do it again and do, let's say, 5 or 10 more takes, even though it was terrific.
Yeah.
Now you have to keep living up to your own standard. Mm-hmm. What an odd thing that is. We're usually trying to live up to someone else's standard, be as good as Paoud or as good as someone else. And now we have to be as good as ourselves 10 times in a row. That's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really is. Yeah. So do you notice a difference in between
Between
solo
chamber
versus
and
chamber?
solo? No, it's always the same, kind of.
I always find it a little, it's comforting to kind of be in it with someone else, right? Like you're you know that you all have your own personal expectations, but you're kind of all in it together when you're recording together, and it's the final vision of the group.
It's true. It can be easier that way, but also it can be harder because you can screw it up for someone else.
Right. Or if you're really happy and someone else isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's disheartening too. I just wanted to say, also, thanks to you. You're always so supportive of Flute Center, and you're always so encouraging to your students, encouraging them to participate in our master classes here and visit and listen. And I think it is supposed to be a resource for flutists and educational experience. So it's great to see that you encourage them to take advantage.
Well,
that's the whole point.
I love what you've started here with these classes. It's fantastic. And thank you for giving all these chances to my students and all the other ones. And I'm a great fan of the Flute Center. Always have been, always will be.
We're a fan of yours. Thanks, Judy, for coming in.
Thank you, Caity.
We love getting to visit with Judy when she stops into Flute Center of New York to listen to our Salon Series masterclasses. And it is a real treat to get to hear her perform at the American Ballet Theater. You can check out their season schedule for upcoming performances and hear more of Judith's playing on her numerous released recordings. Thanks to Judith Mendenhall for the interview. Recordings feature the Hanson Serenade with the New York Chamber Symphony and Kuhlau Grand Duo Concertante Opus 87 with Laurel Zucker and Mindy Kaufman. This has been an episode of Flute Unscripted. This podcast is sponsored by the Flute Center of New York. Visit our website at flutesforsale.com for the largest selection of new and pre-owned instruments. Remember to use this podcast promo code LISTEN for discounts on flutes and sheet music. Special thanks to our owner Phil Unger, the Flute Center team, and Stefan Huskoldson for our theme music.